course, the first reflex that came to us was home as something very warm, a place where you be with your loved ones, you're protected, you're safe. I don't know if it's just us, Southeast Asians or Asians, but home is always associated also with food. Like the kind of food that, you know, we always eat only at our home. And that was why, obviously, if you're present during the opening, there was a huge feast prepared by Bernard, which is really part of this whole idea of this whole space. And but of course, after, you know, having this very warm, safe, nostalgic notion of home, we are also very aware that this is not the reality, at least from where we come from. A lot of us come from migrant backgrounds. Some of us have to accept migration as part of our normal life cycle. So in the end, we also choose to question, together with our artist friends, the meaning of home according to different experiences. And with that, I will pass the mic on to Rizki. All right.
Okay, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to be here. I would just continue what Lisa says about the notion of home. I mean, like during the brainstorm, it was in the mid of persisting pandemic last year. We forced to stay at home the whole time, and it shifted how we perceive home as the place to seek refuge to the place of productivity. And then earlier this year, we witnessed the invasion that forced some of us to migrate. So yeah, just like stop the war.
Just say stop war.
Yeah. So that we carry on with the project, and we invited 6 artists, 3 from Indonesia, one is here, RUDDY from TROMARAMA, and we have NATALIE from Singapore, and KHOO or CHING-CHUAN from Taiwan. And I will start with the very first work here. It's separated from the work in the hall. This is the work by SHIREEN. Maybe some of you know SHIREEN is a part of collective with her partner John Torres called Los Otros. This title is quite long. I have to read again. Yes, it's called A Child Dies, A Child Plays, A Woman is Born, A Woman Dies, A Bird Arrives, A Bird Flies Off. CCTV version. So this work was developed actually in Thailand during the project called Animistic Apparatus, developed by Julie and Ross from EFFR. And this is work by SHIREEN. She captured the migration of bird in the marshland around Philippines and Thailand. She amazed how like ecosystem shared the idea of home for the endemic organism and migrating organism. SHIREEN herself was born in Japan. She's a Filipino artist, and this work echoes the life of her father, who migrates from Philippines to the US in the 70s. And during the brainstorm, we discussed with SHIREEN, and we agreed that in Southeast Asia, the idea of home is very fluid, and it's important to talk about this in Europe, where the idea of home is very rigid. Like if you move to Germany, you have to go to like Anmeldung, otherwise it's not easy for you to move. I mean, like even to find a home, you have to ask whether it's possible to anmelden. I mean, like this type of gesture, the type of legal rigidness doesn't really exist in Southeast Asia at large. I mean, like of course some, but it's very flexible. So this type of gesture inspired her to work with this artwork. So we are lucky because this work usually is presented in like one screen, consists of several frames. And this called CCTV version, he wants to break down the frames into like several CCTV monitors in the set of security officer. Well, this one is DHL. It's interesting because not everyone is the...
it's not very security-like.
Well, yeah. But when I told her that this is DHL, not immigration, yeah, like some people are distributed through cargo, so... Yeah, I mean, like, he loves the idea of surveillance, how organism migrates. So, yeah, if you stand for some while, you will see how this animal stays and then finally flies off. Yes.
So,
yes.
Is that DHL jacket put there on purpose? And the optics on the table too?
The objects on the table are put there on purpose, but not always by us.
Okay.
Shall we continue?
Oh, feel free to ask or interrupt if you find a question or something interesting.
Not the stage. Obviously, this work is visible from both sides. This Solaris, can you please come forward? So Solaris is basically what we consider like the center orbit of this exhibition. Not because it's more prominent than other works, but because of how this work was created, and this work is also created collectively, not only by humans. So I will say maybe a few words and then pass on to Rudy, part of TROMARAMA. Solaris connects us in real time through weather data and internet-based connection to jellyfish that are endemic creatures, species living in Lake Kakaban in Kalimantan, the northern archipelago of Indonesia. And these species are endemic because the place where they live in kind of became a lake inside, in the middle of the sea. And because it became a lake, it's more protected, there is no predator, so they lost their capacity to defend themselves. They don't sting anymore. And for us, it represents, of course, the feeling of safety, that, it is possible for living creature to be that safe. But if you are that safe, is your home then a bubble? And is that good? So with that, I pass it on to Rudy.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, from our visit to Lake Kakaban, we recreated this digital simulated world. But also one of the things that I want to highlight is the fact that jellyfish is one of the organisms that benefited from global warming. So when us as humans or other creatures are feeling endangered by the situation, because the rise of the temperature of the water, it makes a perfect environment for them to reproduce. So in a way, it's really interesting how they are already isolated in this unique condition, and they have more advantage with the rise of the temperature. So for us, it's really interesting how that we could incorporate weather data, like this representation of nature, and giving them a control to our work. So we feel that it's quite interesting how we as an artist, we share the authorship with nature, with weather. So it raises also the question, like, what does it mean to live with others? So yeah, for me, I think that's what I can share with you today.
Some are appearing. Some jellyfish are appearing. Thank you.
Maybe I'd like to add a little bit more technical. So the presence of the jellyfish in this video and the appearance of the natural landscape simulated in this video depends on the weather data in the Lake Kakaban in Kalimantan. So if the temperature gets higher or lower, the number of the jellyfish will change according to the temperature and the color of the landscape as well. So if you come again tomorrow or day after tomorrow, or in case you came yesterday, the number and the color will not be the same.
Okay. All right, on to the next work. Over there. Start a little bit of animation here. So every time you come by this work, please please press the play button. Then we'll start. This is celluloid 19 by Adeline, an artist from Indonesia. And celluloid 19 is a combination between 16mm blue, digital projection, and behind you will see artifacts in form of 16mm film strips that has been treated with different chemical substance. So a little bit about this work and the chemical substance. DYANTINE Adeline, the artist, questions home as a safe and comfortable space, and especially the circumstances that we experienced during the pandemic. During the lockdown, our home not only becomes our place of sanctuary, but also our place to work and our place to be sick or heal. And here she is exposing celluloid film in her home. You can see it in the projection of the video file. So she was processing and soaking the celluloid film strips with different substances inside of her home, which to me or to us shows that home is a fortress to protect. But inside of that fortress, you also have your own battle with the virus, or you have to protect yourself. And therefore, for us, it's a good work that will record our experience of the pandemic, not only as a film, as we know, film can record like the visuals and the audio, but really recording what our body was exposed to during the pandemic. So here, Adeline is soaking the film strips into herbal medicine, vitamin C, and even the swab test. So if you come later to the back of the exhibition, you will see strips with labels, like with which solution the strips has been exposed to. And for us, it acts as a doppelganger of our body, and we think like if we see this work again in 30 or 50 years time, it will be a good record of what we experience or our body experienced today. Thank you.
here we migrate from CHING-CHUAN. I really love this work. I mean, this work is like more like a spatial simulacra of the space where the Burmese community in Taiwan, and you could see the a restaurant or library or like a supermarket where you could get the Burmese goods, daily groceries from the Burmese community. And I like the idea of we migrate here. CHING-CHUAN's mother is Burmese, and in some communities to migrate back is not as easy as you think. I mean, like no matter how you try to reminisce Myanmar, for Burmese community, it is not easy to return to Myanmar at this moment. It is also the same for many migrants in Europe, that they could not easily return to their homeland, and even the idea of their homeland doesn't exist anymore. But I think it's better to hear from CHING-CHUAN. You can also speak in Mandarin if you want. It's easier. Okay. No, okay, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is KHOO. I come from Taiwan. I'm honored to participate in this exhibition, and my English is not very good.
It's very good.
But I'm excited to meet you all. And one of these things from Project Migrate, is inspired by a stream near my house, where there are a lot of Burmese Chinese people. Since my mother's Burmese Chinese, I often try to visualize the childhood memory of my mother's on this stream. My mother was born in Myanmar, but she is not actually Burmese. She is Chinese. When she returned to the Chinese society in Taiwan, it was actually her first time experience this Chinese society. My mother told me that she misses her hometown in Myanmar and that she lacks a sense of belonging in Taiwan sometimes. It got me thinking. I have never experienced immigrant. Why do I also feel like I don't belong sometimes? After putting some thought to it, I realized that it is caused by attraction of technology. The online world has forced us to migrate to a new reality. This project was inspired by the real-life experience of me and my mother. For this project, I used 3D scan to capture the image of this string and piece them together, so that different time and space could be integrated into each space. I use 3D scanner, which result in log and incomplete file. This is why often creation has also appeared in my previous work, because I have always been interested in the relationship between humanity and evolution of technology. Yes, so as technology progresses, are we as humans losing more at the same time. Yes, thank you.
The reason why I really love this work is there's an attempt to capture reality as close as possible, but due to the lack of the capacity of technology, it appears very vague at the same time. It's like you try to remember, but you could not get the right picture of it, but you can still see the vague imagery. But if you have a question about this work, feel free to ask casually or along the way we talk to an expert. Thank you.
Excavating into the unknown, making something strange familiar, and making something familiar, like home, strange. And for me, it was a very uncanny experience growing up in Singapore. So, I mean, Singapore is the richest country in Southeast Asia, and it has a very kind of multi-layered history, you know, from British colonization and Japanese occupation during World War II, and all these very traumatic kind of layers of history. And my grandmother, she immigrated to Singapore from Indonesia in 1949, so just after the war. And she brought with her these stories about spirits, about dead people, about ghosts. And so in 2015, I went with her to Tanjung Batu, which is the island she grew up in. It's about maybe 6 hours, 3, 4, 5, maybe hours from Singapore, and it feels really long. And we went there for a festival. It's called Qingming, and it's a tomb sweeping festival. And my grandmother, she's like super Catholic, but also super Taoist at the same time. So I went with my Catholic grandmother to her father's tomb in Indonesia. And what really struck me when I was visiting her house there, you'll see in the film, is she told me about a spider spirit that lived in the house. And when they moved to Singapore, the spider would spin these huge webs on the ancestral altar. So that, you know, you go in, there's like people's portraits and like huge webs, you know. So I was like, oh, that's pretty crazy. And what happened was that every time she'd tell me the story, it's different. So it's like, I don't know, it's a bit suspicious. And when she wrote it down, so during COVID, like we were super bored at home, and she like wrote down all these stories about her family, about ghosts, about spiders, and it was also really different. And so when I wanted to make it into like an adaptation in this video film, I got a bunch of my friends, animators, fashion designers, a bunch of people, and to respond to these kind of anecdotes, and everyone kind of responded differently. So in that way, like the authorship was quite like plural, and what you get is this like web of lots of people's stories, like amalgamated together. Some are real, some are fictionalized, some are spiritual, some are historical. And it reminds me of like this kind of unstable type of memory, especially with Singapore, which is such a schizophrenic place. It's this kind of, I mean, we've been, it's like, you know, beautiful, it's super structured, super clean, but it has a very dark, like Lisa was saying, like Gothic history that is kind of not super known. So for this cave, you'll see it in the film, it was shot on an island called, now it's called Sentosa. And it's like this resort. It has like Universal Studios and like super luxurious yachts, and like it's crazy. But its previous name was called Pulau Belakang Mati, which actually means the island behind death. And so, but now it's Sentosa. So yeah.
Sentosa means like prosperity.
A golden isle.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this very strange interplay of like location over location buried somewhere inside. And it reminded me of this ethnography that I was reading about the Korowai of West Papua. And actually for Singapore, it's quite hard to find contemporary anthropology texts because it tends to go into like sociological, data-driven type of writings. And what the Korowai believed is that they had heard about Singapore, but they'd never been there. And so people would say, when you die, you go to Singapore. And it's like, okay, like someone was very sick, they'll be like, I think they're going to Singapore. So I thought this was pretty interesting. And it's also related to the idea of like a neoliberal promise, right? Like Singapore, you go there to get a job, like my family. And, but you know, let's see what happens, you might die, maybe. And it's really serious, right? And so yeah, Singapore as a city of the dead is what the film is broadly about this very extractive, vampiric quality. Even for my family's migration route, lots of people die. We, you know, spirits come and go, and some of them we know. And yeah, so you see these different characters. They're all kind of fluidly walking into this Gothic city, and they change like identities and they figure it out through this kind of fluidity. And yeah, so that's home.
And perhaps, yeah, perhaps if I can add also. What I find also like cherry on top, kind of eerie, you know, is because you're playing the spider ghost. So for me, it's also like a self-portrait of Natalie as a spider spirit ghost inside of this work, and that's why I like it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Subject related to the extraction of earth energy, and And with this work, he tries to speculate in the future of Indonesia. Indonesia finally embraced the nuclear energy. I know that Germany finally shut down the nuclear energy, but Indonesia is still dreaming to have a nuclear energy as the most efficient and clean energy. And this story actually developed from the long plan of Indonesia to have nuclear plant, energy plant. And in this story, like Indonesia is depicted as the country with the most efficient productivity, no nighttime, all daytime, because they could develop artificial sun that could make 24/7 productive hour. So the idea of not working is forbidden in the future of Indonesia. So apart from the idea of development of nuclear energy, there is one character roaming around away from the residential area carrying mattress so that he could sleep away from the authority, away from the community, so he could not be disturbed to have rest, to have a sleep. Yeah, this guy with mattress. So why we are interested to put this work in this exhibition, like I said before, in the past 2 years, we started to share our domestic space as the space for productivity, apart from the space to seek refuge or space to have rest or have a leisure with family. So since that kind of notion shifted, I find this work resonates better to that idea. Yeah, if this artist developed this work from his previous project, presented or commissioned by Transmedia Berlin, called The Right to Do Nothing. So before, he worked with migrant workers in Hong Kong who always gathered on Sunday on public space in Hong Kong, and they start to run a community radio. Anything can be broadcasted, can be exchanged as an information, anything except information related to productivity or work. It has to be about leisure and not doing anything. Yes, and these chairs, it has military pattern on it. Like if you watch this work, you will see a military guy. They are everywhere. They are sitting in this type of chairs. This is weird because these military chairs is like a tactical chairs carried by a soldier in the war zone. But at the same time, it resembles like a fishing chair, where you could at the same time relaxing or fishing. Yes, I think that's all the work in this exhibition. Feel free to just sit down and follow the film until the end, or check also the other artworks. Or feel free if you have questions. Thank you.
And if you're interested, there's this little info sheet you can get at the info desk. And we also wrote a text in the festival catalog that you can either get as print or download on the website. Enjoy. And please also feel free to speak to the artists while they're here and party with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This lady all want to do a picture together from all of the
Your turn.
Maya.
Okay, Rizki.
Ya, like Audi. Enggak. Jadi aku baru tahu tadi, jadi aku pergi belikan barang yang ini. Jadi aku lapan. Ya. You had good time? Yeah.
This exhibition was curated through Laba, and I'd like to thank you, Edwin, on behalf of your team. Come please back on stage. Thank you so much. With all of your friends and colleagues and every one of you contributing to the Southeast Asian focus, we can call it like this, it was such an envy, and the exhibition was just such an amazing thing.
As you saw, I can't visit Rizki here as well.
Rizki! I know that.
And don't worry, we didn't run out of plates, we just want to stand in. And then we also have some of the artists here from the exhibition that we definitely would love to thank as well.
Rudy.
Rudy's here. Actually, I lost the overview because there's so many people, beautiful people here, so I lost the overview. Who is all here?
Rudy HATUMENA from TROMARAMA. Can you
get everybody on stage, please?
Okay, they're
at the bar already, maybe. Yeah, we do that as well. So thanks to all of you for curating this beautiful exhibition, for bringing your beautiful works to Hamburg. Thanks to the tech team for setting all this up, because this was quite an effort to set up here. It looks beautiful. And if you have the time, I mean, you do have the time, and you haven't seen it yet, please go there for the rest of the night. We have the exhibition open, it's basically through 2 doors that way. So thank you so much for bringing this to Hamburg.